Folks, I gotta tell you, when I first saw this knife being released, I got super excited right away. Today we're gonna be looking at the Boker Patriot, a USA-made Boker knife with 154 cm steel, weighs under 3 ounces, has an over 3-inch blade, lockback design, deep ride pocket clip, lots of color combinations. And honestly, as soon as I saw it, I thought, wow, that looks like a great competitor to my very beloved Spyderco Delica4. So we are going to run in the Delica4 in this video side by side with the Patriot, so we can not only talk about what the Patriot has to offer, but for many of you who are looking for that ultralight EDC blade, there is heavy competition with the Delica4 with this knife and vice versa. So we'll talk about the pros and cons of each of their designs in this video. So let's go ahead, let's jump to it, see what the Boker Patriot has to offer and how it can compete with the Delica4. Blade comparison, and as you've seen through all the action that I just have run through with you, this Boker, I'm very pleased with its overall performance. It just slices, it dices, it goes through everything that I put up against it with flying colors, and that's because of the saber grind, very high saber grind that it has, if you can kind of see that there, and the thickness of being 0.12 and then tapering down real quickly. Does a great job. Has a drop point and is definitely kind of more of a spear shape, whereas we have more of a leaf shape with a full flat grind on the Spyderco. And when we line up the blade edges, you can definitely see that the Boker has a big advantage in blade length. The overall blade length on the Boker is going to be 3.375 inches long, which is going to be great reach at just over 3 inches, with an actual cutting edge at right about 3 inches. And then you're looking at, 2.88 inches long overall for the Spyderco, and having an actual cutting edge of like 2.56, which is not bad at all. I love that, and it's great for all sorts of EDC stuff, and the full flat grind, and it being 0.09 thickness. So it's definitely a thinner thickness with that full flat grind and a more precise, delicate tip. So in reality, the Spyderco will slice slightly better. It's just pure physics, full flat grind and a thinner blade. There's no way around it. It's gonna slice better, but it's not gonna have quite the tip strength or blade reach that the Boker will, and it's very competitive. You can see a difference in slicing capability just because of the Spyderco's thinness over the Boker, but it's very small, and the Boker still does every EDC task I would expect a knife, any of my pocket knives, to do, and can compete with any of the pocket knives that I own. Then finally, we have USA-made 154 cm and Japanese-made VG10, very similar steels, good rust resistance, good edge retention. Spyderco tends to do a lower heat treat, Rockwell, whatever they're doing with the VG10. Doesn't hold an edge as well as some other VG10 I've seen out on the market. So it's decent, and I would say that the 154 cm on the Boker is very competitive. They're very similar with their edge retention capabilities, resharpening capabilities, all very good for what you would expect from a VG10 or 154 cm, and definitely a good steel and an upgrade over, say, like AUS 8, or something like that, or HCR 13 MOV. But not at this point in time, in 2016, would I call either of these like a super steel or a premium steel anymore. I would say they're just a good steel for the price points that we're looking at on these two blades. All right, so prices are very similar as well. Again, this is why we're battling these two guys out, is they're so close in so many different ways, not only in quality, size, lightweight capability and price point. Usually the Spyderco is going to go for about $65. Maybe sometimes you can get it on a steal for about $60, but $65 is the going rate, and we'll have links to Amazon below for the Spyderco if that's what you're into. It's always a great way to help support the channel. The Boker is going to go for about $65 to $70, so right within about $5 of margin of the price. There's lots of different color combinations on the Delica. There's lots of different color combinations on the Boker as well. We'll have a link over to Amazon as well to help support the channel if you are interested in the Boker. When you guys use those links, that helps us continue to purchase gear so that you guys can see the new stuff. So within $5 of each other and very reasonable for the materials. All right, let's talk about the handles here. And this is very close, and this is one of the big parts of why I'm battling these two out. One is the weight. Now, the weight on the Boker is going to be 2.1 ounces, ultra lightweight. Phenomenal. And I've always liked the Delica because it's also very lightweight, and they have very similar, that glass reinforced nylon handle materials. But the Spyderco is actually a little bit heavier at 2.5 ounces. So not really noticeable, but you will get slightly lighter on the Boker, which is awesome for extra blade length and all the things that we've talked about. Very cool that it has that capability. Now, on the Boker, we do have this kind of diamond plating is kind of what it looks like. Reminds me of like a tool chest or something like that. So it is rather heavy traction. So just be aware of that. It doesn't ever hurt my hands or bite into my hands, but it's heavy traction, heavy grip. And you got lots of cut-ins, but they all fit perfectly in my large size hands, as you can see there. And I always share that with you guys so you can compare that to your hands. I like this natural sweep and curvature, really contours and fits perfectly into my hand there. You're looking at a thickness of 0.43, I believe. So it is going to be slightly thicker than on the Spyderco as well. So it will contour to your hand a little bit more, and no hot spots or uncomfortability or anything like that. You do have that thumb ramp with aggressive jimping, but it doesn't seem to, there's just something about it that doesn't really hurt my fingers when I bite in and really push onto it like most others. I think they just kind of rounded off the tops ever so slightly to give it better traction in the hand. Now, this is not a designated finger choil. It's really too small for my index finger, so it's just kind of a blank spot, but that's for the kick down and closure, there we go, of the knife that we'll discuss here in just a moment. So that is something to note as well. Don't think that this is a finger choil. It really is not. So there is some distance between the edge and the actual guard back here, and that's the other positive, is I have a really, really positive lockup for stabbing tasks or just heavy-duty utility tasks. So I'm really locked into place, even in a reverse grip. I would say I definitely have a better grip and better traction overall on the Boker than I do on the Delica. Now, that's not to say that for these size of knives, they're EDC knives, so for EDC tasks, they're both going to do well, but that is something to consider because the Spyderco is going to have a slightly longer handle. We're looking at about 4.1 inches long on the Boker, and we're looking at 4.25 inches on the Spyderco, so there's just a hair longer in my large size hands, and it's definitely slightly more comfortable, I'll say that. This is a little bit more heavy attraction and heavy aggressive feeling in the hand. This one is all rounded and doesn't really give me any sort of as heavy a grip as the other blade, the Boker does. Then we got that really heavy thumb ramp right there, and then very light jimping, which is nice. And then we do have about the actual same distance from cutting edge to the guard as on the Boker. When we lay these up, the edges basically start at the exact same point, so the distances are the same from cutting edge to your hand for control. So just take that into consideration as well. But both have great handles, and I love that I have zero complaints with the handle ergonomics on the Boker. Just be aware that it has a slightly heavier traction. All right, so let's go ahead and hit the deployment here. Now with the Boker, you get thumb studs on either side to help with the pocket clip being ambidextrous. So you lefties, you're totally in luck. There's a little nut right there, so you could take this thumb stud off completely. For those of you in countries that don't allow one-handed deployment, you could totally just take this thumb stud completely off, and you're good, and you're set, and you're good to go. Great setup on it. Nice scallops right here and far away from the handle, so it's going to be very easy for me to flick open with barely even a flick of my wrist. I will say it was rather tight out of the box. Took me about a week to really break it in. I dropped a little bit of Hops gun oil in there, and it loosened right up, and now it just flies open just as fast as any lockback knife that I own. So very quick snap of the wrist, and boom, you're out and you're good to go. Having zero complaints with the thumb studs or the deployment overall. And because they made that length right here, I'm able to disengage the lockback design, which is really well done, really solid in there. You even got the little detent right there, and you can just squeeze that and kick it down, and it's never going to nick your finger, and close it up one-handed. So one-handed deployment, one-handed close as well. So I love that feature. Now obviously we all know the Spyderco hole, very quick, and works basically in the same exact way, but I can't seem to, because of how thin and lightweight the blade is, I can't quite get it to kick down as far, so it's a little bit awkwarder than, if that's a word, more awkward than the Boker. The Boker seems to have a quicker snap out, and then an easier catch and drop down. So that's just something that I've kind of noticed between the two blades here, that between the two, once you break in the Boker, it's actually a little bit quicker to deploy and a little bit easier to close one-handed as well. So pocket clips. One of the complaints I always had with my Delica is that it's a really high ride in the pocket back here. You know, it sticks up pretty far out of your pocket. It's noticeable. That is not the case on the Boker. It is a deep ride pocket clip. They did a great job with it. Gives it good strength. It is reversible for either side, so righties or lefties. It's easy for you to swap out. Now it's only tip up, which I love. I don't have a problem with, I don't look for tip down, whereas the Spyderco will have four-way directional. So it's, you know, right or left, and then it's tip up or tip down. That is not the case with the Boker. It's only tip up, but that doesn't bother me in the least. And honestly, between the two, the Boker, I believe, has a much better ride. Now, it does not have any flat spot underneath the diamond checkering, so it will thrash your pocket more so than the Spyderco, because the Spyderco has it right underneath that logo. So that was a good thing the Spyderco did in that design of the Delica so many years ago. So that is something to note, but the pocket clip on the Boker is pretty flexible. It's not super stiff, so it's not going to totally destroy your jeans, but it will, you know, wear out your pocket material faster than the Spyderco will. But overall, if you were to say, hey, which pocket clip and ride do you like better? I like the Boker better. Well, there you have it, folks. I got to tell you, I love this blade. It's one of my favorite EDC pocket knives that has come out for 2016, and it is definitely going to be sticking around for quite a while in the collection. And honestly, I just hope that Boker continues down this line, the US company continues down this line of making good, functional, at a good price, USA-made stuff. And I'd love to see a black handle, black version without serrations, black blade, black handle. That'd be really cool to have as well down the line. But yeah, folks, can't say enough good things about this knife. I love it. And honestly, it would be a total coin toss. Whichever one lands up, I'd be happy with when it comes to the Delica4 or the Boker Patriot. Pick your poison, basically. You're going to love it either way. So as always, thank you so much for coming over here, checking out the channel. It always helps when you guys like this video, and if you like what you see here, please subscribe. There's tons of videos always coming out every single week. And always remember, stay equipped, stay prepared. We'll see you out there.